Okay na, salamat. Welcome to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang, your intel in the Philippine markets and the economy. In the headlines, the Konektadong Pinoy Act lapses into law, promising reliable, affordable internet for all. We speak with the Secretary of the Department of Information and Communications Technology, Henry Aguda. Philippine exporters slash forecasts on electronic exports this year as U.S. tariffs bite. George Manzano, the University of Asia and the Pacific, and former commissioner of the Philippine Tariff Commission, joins us live. And San Miguel shares, not part of Marcos's estate, rules the Court of Tax Appeals. The court orders the Bureau of Internal Revenue to stop collecting taxes from these shares. Telco players now eye an active role in the drafting of the implementing rules and regulations of the Konektadong Pinoy Bill, which lapsed into law yesterday, Sunday. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro made the confirmation without giving further details. President Marcos did not take any action on the bill since it was transmitted to Malacanang on July 24. In an interview with Business World, DICT Secretary Henry Aguda said the IRR will be released in the next 60 days. He has personally invited representatives from major telco players to help in crafting the rules. The law now aims to improve internet access by allowing new players to enter the data transmission sector without the need to secure a legislative franchise and certificate of public convenience and necessity. But the Philippine Chamber of Telecommunications Operators has lodged objections over the bill. In June, PCTO President and Globe General Counsel Froilan Castelo said Konektadong Pinoy would open the door for unregulated infrastructure and potential foreign control. He added that new players will not be subjected to strict regulation unlike industry giants. PCTO Vice President Roy Ibay made this point during an interview on this program last month.
What we are calling for is the same rules, same protection, same safeguards for all. Tinanggalan kami ng rights and privileges over whatever inherent provisions that is contained in our franchise, basta data transmission, kasi this bill daw will now govern data transmission. Removing this inherent granted and already enjoyed privilege of franchise holders will now be rendered ineffectual or ineffective under the new KPBL.
Four major telcos, only Converge has voiced support for the measure. Converge CEO Dennis Anthony Uy said last week, and we quote, "The more players in the country, the better for consumers." Globe, for its part, has doubled down on its call to return the measure to Congress for refining, citing regulatory imbalance and uneven competition. As for PLDT, Chief Legal Counsel Joan de Venecia Fabul said it is seeking a seat at the table in firming up the IRR to address security concerns. But senior legal advisor to the chair, Marilyn Victorio Aquino, left open the possibility of a Supreme Court challenge. PLDT and Signal, the owner of this channel, are both part of the MVP group. Joining us today is the Secretary of the Department of Information and Communications Technology, Henry Aguda. Good to have you on, Secretary Henry. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Cathy, and to your listeners, Happy Heroes Day.
Happy Heroes Day indeed, and congratulations. I know that you've advocated for the passage of what is now a law. So what exactly is its significance? Why should people care?
Well, magandang usapin yan kasi I heard si Attorney Ibay talk about privileges, di ba? So let's take the conversation out of the narrative of privileges of the telco and discuss the rights of the normal Filipino consumer based on Konektadong Pinoy. So, Konektadong Pinoy's objective is universal connectivity for the country and affordability. With Konektadong Pinoy, well, all Filipinos now will have rights in terms of affordable and effective connectivity. I think that's where the conversation should move to.
Indeed, of course, yung ordinaryong Pilipino from remote learners to MSMEs and even to the business process outsourcing businesses expecting faster, cheaper, and more reliable internet because of this law. So, kailan po natin mararanasan ang epekto nitong bagong batas?
Yeah, so first things first would be the IRR. And even before the passage of the Konektadong Pinoy, DICT and NTC have already started our legal work to ensure that when we draft the IRR, all stakeholders are involved. And I personally reach out to the large telcos, their CEOs, and the chamber that they're welcome to participate in the IRR. I think some of them have already expressed intention to participate. Those who still require explanation from me, my line is open, my office is open, and I'm willing to sit down with them. So, una-muna IRR, then full blood tayo sa implementation. The objective of the President is before the end of 2028, lahat dapat ng Pilipino, kahit isang sulok ng Pilipinas, meron ng affordable internet connectivity.
Sino-sino na po yung mga nagpunta sa inyo at nagsabing they will take part in the IRR?
One is Converge. They're very direct in saying na once the President already allows it to become law, they will support the IRR. I think in the press releases of PLDT, they will participate actively in the IRR. Si Globe, nakausap ko rin, may mga tanong pa sila and I've offered my time and my team's expertise to sit down with them to address their concerns.
Ano po yung concern?
Usual, yung issue sa cybersecurity. And yun nga sinusubukan kong intindihin kung saan sila nanggagaling. Kasi lahat naman ng telco ngayon susunod sa minimum standard ng gobyerno. Tapos yung mga bagong papasok, susunod din. But the Konektado Pinoy implements another layer of cybersecurity protection, which is in 2 years' time, all of them, new or old, should have international cybersecurity certification. So it actually strengthens cybersecurity. And part of the rights of the internet users is to be assured of cybersecurity protection. So medyo doon ako, I'm also baffled. Ano yung problema sa cybersecurity when the law strengthens that aspect of the industry?
Doon po sa issue ng CPCN, doon sa franchise, the palace stated that the new law allows new data transmission providers to operate without a legislative franchise. Ito po yung tinatawag na CPCN or Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity. The reason why it's drawn opposition from the major industry groups, ito nga po yung PCTO, Telco. So how can the government ensure then responsible oversight, quality, and security na rin while welcoming the new entrants?
Well, one is strict implementation of the DICT and NTC laws. Hindi lang sa amin yan. Marami dyan yung Foreign Investments Act. And there are several laws that already ensures na if government follows it, it will be protected. So, nandun po yun, and we can explain that. Now, second, in order for them to be assured, they have a seat at the table in crafting the IRR. So, yung mga tingin nila na dapat nasa IRR and dapat ginagawa ng DICT and NTC, they can pull us out if we don't follow. Ang maganda kasi nito, nandiyan na yung batas. It's already been passed by Senate and Congress and already allowed into law by the executive. Then let's work together to make it work. Yun lang yung guarantee ko. If they work with us, we will also hear out their concerns and come up with a harmonious solution.
So, sino-sino po yung mga stakeholders? Na-mention na natin yung mga telco providers, pero meron ba mga new players na isasama at sasama dyan sa pag-craft ng IRR?
Well, new players, they are welcome to submit their white paper. And I receive white paper left and right. But I think it is just naman appropriate na kung sino yung current operating telcos, they have a stronger say and participation. Kasi apektado yung negosyo nila eh. So, if you're asking me, meron na bang foreign telco na nag-express ng interest to help out in the IRR? Meron, but they're limited to submitting their white paper and will do public hearing. So, pag public hearing naman, everybody's allowed to participate.
Can you name one or two of the new players, sir?
Well, there's Starlink. Hindi na naman iba yan. Dahil Starlink operates in the country right now. Even without Konektadong Pinoy, just for everyone's appreciation, they're operating. And their suggestion is, how do we accelerate connectivity in the country? So, anyone naman na may recommendation on how to make internet more affordable and better are welcome to participate in the discussion.
And key to that is infrastructure sharing. Isa sa mga concerns din, how will the DICT facilitate infrastructure sharing as mandated by law? Ano pong mga incentives o mga penalties in place to ensure compliance by major telcos? At kasama na rin doon yung real estate developers and landlords.
So infrastructure sharing is also, it has to be fair and reasonable arrangement. Hindi naman yan confiscatory eh. The law doesn't contemplate government coming in and getting or expropriating infrastructure. Hindi po yon. Ang nasa batas is, pag may reasonable basis to share infrastructure, dapat naman the regulator can come in and assess. Hindi pwedeng meron kang infrastructure, hindi mo papagamit sa iba, when allowing it to be used by others allows more people to be connected. So how do we ensure that it's fair and reasonable? Again, it's in the IRR. And second, everything will be made transparent. One of the things that the ICT and NTC has done is to make all of our transactions transparent to the public. So if the public sees na medyo unfair yung treatment ng DICT, they can complain and they can call us out.
I'll pick up on transparency, sir, kasi nga yung hesitancy coming from the telco providers, for instance, comes from what those in opposition say is now a law, yung Konektadong Pinoy Act, that the industry was not consulted of the changes made at the BICAM level. Is this true?
I cannot speak for the Senate and Congress, but from my understanding, this law naman hindi bago eh. It has been deliberated and discussed on for years. On the BICAM, I was told that invitations went out. Now, siguro ang magandang sabihin na lang ng mga telco is they be specific. What hearing or what session were they specifically excluded? Kasi I think yung mga BICAM sessions naman, alam naman natin kung kailan ang schedule eh. And people who want to participate can participate. So on transparency naman, Cathy, I offer this to the telcos. They can come to me, come to my office, and we'll be very, very transparent. Ngayon kasi I talk to them individually eh. And I've already asked them, if you have a common position, usap tayo. Mas maganda kung nag-uusap tayo in a transparent manner ba, harapan tayo. Then, babalang kasi natin ano yung problema at hanapan natin ng solusyon.
Okay, that's loud and clear. Coming from the Secretary himself, salamat po for making the time on this national holiday. Secretary Henry Aguda of the DICT.
Thank you, Cathy.
The Education Department is launching a data transparency portal to provide a better understanding of student performance and school needs. The Paaralang Bukas dashboard will feature key statistics such as the number of enrollees, facilities, utilities, and maintenance expenses, as well as results from the National Achievement Test and Early Language, Literacy, and Numeracy Assessment for school year 2023 to 2024. In a statement, DepEd Secretary Sonny Angara said open access data will provide stakeholders an opportunity to find solutions to the country's education problems. The move is aligned with President Marcos's transparency agenda, as well as the Open Government Partnerships mission, of which the Philippines is one of the founding members. The partnership is a global initiative to promote accountability and responsiveness in the government. President Marcos is joining the nation in commemorating National Heroes Day today, August 25th. He led the rites this morning at the Libingan ng Mga Bayani in Taguig City. The National Historical Commission spearheaded the event in collaboration with the Defense Department and the city of Taguig. Under Republic Act 9492, the last Monday of August is observed as National Heroes Day. In a statement, Marcos honored Filipinos who, guided by conviction that arises from a deep love for the country, ventured into the fires of struggle that forged our nation's destiny. He stressed that nation building is an unrelenting endeavor, best exemplified by farmers, fisherfolk, teachers, soldiers, and countless ordinary men and women who fulfill their duties in extraordinary ways. He ended his message by urging the public to emulate our heroes through genuine service and simple acts of compassion, saying each generation has the chance to be heroes in building a bagong Pilipinas. You're watching Money Talks. Coming right up, exporters lower their target as they anticipate electronics exports to the U.S. to drop. Our conversation with former Commissioner of the Philippine Tariff Commission, George Manzano, in a few minutes. And a historic win for Alex Ayala at the U.S. Open. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. The economy may pick up in the second quarter despite higher U.S. tariffs and milder typhoons, according to the University of Asia and Pacific, or UANP. In its latest market call released on August 22nd, UANP says despite the Trump tariffs, milder typhoon season will help accelerate GDP expansion in the third quarter to 5.8%, given a low base in 2024. If realized, this would be faster than the 5.2% in the same period last year and the 5.5% print in the second quarter. Still, the forecast is within the government's revised 5.5% to 6.5% target this year. An exporters group says the country may miss export targets under the Philippine Development Plan if the U.S. imposes tariffs on semiconductors. PhilExport President Sergio Ortiz Luis said the Philippine Export Development Plan goal was already out of reach, so they shifted to the lower PDP target. Even that will be difficult, as electronic shipments to the U.S. could decline. Under the PDP, exports are targeted at $113 to $115 billion through 2025, compared to PDP's $163 billion. Earlier, U.S. President Trump threatened to impose a 200 to 300% levy on semiconductors entering the U.S. market in a bid to revive U.S. chip production. Ortiz Luis said they hope Philippine chip exports will be exempt, but with nothing to offer the U.S., the country has little leverage. Now in its third week, the Philippines has been exporting goods to the U.S. with 19% tariffs tacked upon entry, while U.S. soybean, wheat, automobiles, and pharmaceuticals are imported into the Philippines with zero tariffs. With us now for more, live from Davao, is George Manzano, economist at the University of Asia and the Pacific. He is also former commissioner of the Philippine Tariff Commission. Good to see you again, George. Welcome to the program.
Happy to be here, Cathy. Good morning.
All
Thank
right.
you.
So we're entering the third week of Trump's 19% tariffs in force. In your channel checks, what's been the impact so far in Philippine exporters in terms of maybe logistics, supply chain, among others?
Well, at the moment, there is no schedule yet, so it's a bit sketchy. What are the detailed provisions? As you know, in tariff negotiations, the devil is in the details. What we have so far are the general pronouncements coming from the White House that we're going to be tapped 19%, and that we have a few U.S. imports in certain sectors that will come in at duty-free. Note, however, that the 19% reciprocal tariffs is on top of prevailing tariffs. So it's just not 19%. If you have a 5% tariff already prevailing, the total tariff would be the additional 19 over the 5%, so make it 24%. And that's quite a hefty hike in terms of exports to the U.S., especially because most of our exports to the U.S. are either duty-free or in very low tariff categories.
So does that justify then the move of exporters, of PhilExport, to lower their own targets for electronics exports under the Philippine Development Plan?
Yes, in the sense that there is no upside. All the tariffs are up in the U.S. We have not seen a tariff reduction in any part of the world in a very substantial way. This is really a very great disruption. And more than that, it's not only the increase in tariff, but its effect on investments in the Philippines exporting industries, especially if the market is the United States. If factories are not going to be coming in here because of the prospects of market access to the U.S. is quite clouded, then we don't expect investments to flow, at least in the same fervor as they did in the past, simply because the demand has, by a stroke of a pen, has diminished. We only hope that semiconductors will still be exempt, because that's really one big chunk of our export interest to the United States.
All right, so as we hope for the best, what about consumption demand? Could that actually be a tailwind, because zero tariff concessions on some of the four products include soy and wheat? That could be inputs to agricultural products. That could mean lower prices for consumers here.
Yeah, true. That would mean lower prices for consumers, but it does not necessarily translate into higher import bills, simply because what the duty-free entry of U.S. imports, let's say in wheat or soy, will simply take away the markets of our other exporters to the Philippines. So this is what you call trade diversion. Unless, of course, the prices will be very low, in which the demand for the Philippines will increase for these particular items. But we see a change in the share of the U.S. in our imports, basically to go up higher. At the same time, we have to look also at the existing tariff rates on, let's say, cereals or soybeans or pharmaceuticals that are going to be duty-free. they're not really that high. I think wheat would be 3%. So it may mean that the U.S. will be able to export more wheat at the expense of our imports of wheat coming from Turkey, for that matter.
So we haven't got any more details to go with, but Secretary Federico did tell reporters a month ago that the Philippines remains committed to talking with the U.S. in pursuit of a bilateral deal, such as a free trade agreement. But what are the chances at this stage of an FTA?
An FTA, from the nature of an FTA means that both parties will have to lift their tariffs so that there will be freer flow of goods. But that will be inimical to the objectives of President Trump in order to rebalance its trade with many countries, including the Philippines. Because if there's going to be an FTA, chances are the U.S. will be deficitary again in trade with respect to the Philippines.
Just as a final point, the call centers, services exports, are going to be hit if indeed the Keep Call Centers America Act does get enacted into law. Have you done up the numbers and what sort of an impact, and could it even be bigger than what we just talked about as the deterrents that we have in the export sector?
Yes, actually, there is already a cloud hanging over the BPO industry, and that's the threat from artificial intelligence, substituting some of the tasks done currently by call centers. I think the industry has much to talk about that. But at the same time, this is also another shock that's in the works on how it will impact the demand for our call centers, because we are one of the biggest, or if not the biggest, service providers of call centers in the world, and we're employing a lot of workers in that particular industry. So certainly, if the Call Centers in America Act will come into fruition, we expect a lowering of demand for that industry. However, the demand will not be across the board, meaning not all industries will leave the Philippines, because the act, I think, will only not force all U.S. companies. That it only affects those U.S. companies that get federal grants or contracts, and those which are private sector only firms will be less hit, no, in that sense. But this will, of course, put pressure on the industry and to diversify markets. At the same time, it will put pressure on the industry to upskill, to basically go up the ladder of value added. No? Those that cannot be easily replaced by call centers. No? We're talking about specialized back office supports and so on.
It's certainly one to watch, services exports apart from electronics exports. Thank you so much for the context and insights, George Manzano of the UANP.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's take a look at the U.S. markets now. They've risen last Friday after Fed Chair Jerome Powell opened the door for a possible rate cut next month. The Dow posted its first record of the year, surging by 800 points, or nearly 1.9%. S&P 500 climbed by 1.5%, and the Nasdaq advanced by 1.8%. Benchmark 10-year Treasury yields ticked down to 4.258%. Gold prices rose to $3,421 per troy ounce. U.S. futures fall marginally in after-hours trading. The Dow, S&P, and the Nasdaq are all down by less than 0.1%. Asian markets are tracking Wall Street gains this Monday. Australia's ASX 200 up by 0.7%. South Korea's Kospi climbs 0.8%, and Japan's Nikkei 225 advances 0.4%. Philippine markets are closed this Monday in celebration of National Heroes Day. PSCI closed Friday slightly higher by less than 0.1% at 6,281 as investors await for fresh leads. The broader all-shares index also rose marginally, with sectoral gauges mostly in the green. PSE last week announced that trading will be canceled if signal number 3, 4, or 5 is raised in Metro Manila. PSE now has the discretion to halt, suspend, or cancel a scheduled trading day during natural disasters or unforeseen events. As for the Philippine peso, it closed last Friday a tad stronger at 56.95 to the dollar from the previous close of 56.96 against the greenback. And the 10-year government bond yields ticked up to 6% from the previous close of 5.972%. The Court of Tax Appeals has put the brakes on the Bureau of Internal Revenue from seizing 8.6 billion pesos worth of shares in San Miguel Corporation as part of a 1991 Marcos Estate tax assessment. The CTA ruled on August 14 that the SMC's shares are not part of the Marcos Estate because they are exclusive properties of the late tycoon Eduardo Cojuangco Jr. The case stemmed from the 34-year-old assessment issued against the estate of former President Ferdinand Marcos Sr., amounting to 23.29 billion. Included in the 36 billion gross estate are SMC's stocks valued at 8.6 billion. The CTA ruled that the BIR's move to distrain amount to grave abuse of discretion. The Energy Regulatory Commission has allowed Meralco to procure 100 megawatts of baseload power from Aboitiz Power's GN Power Tingin plant. The ERC has granted interim relief for the power supply agreement at an annual capacity rate of over 17,000 pesos. The regulator noted the rates are lower than the previously approved prices for the same facility. GNPD operates a 1,336 megawatt coal plant in Mariveles, Bataan. The agreement will supply Meralco's baseload needs for 15 years starting Tuesday, August 26. Meralco and Signal, the owner of this channel, are both part of the MVP Group. For more business stories, check out Business World Online. And before we go, Filipino tennis star Alex Ayala scores a historic win at the U.S. Open, becoming the first Filipino to win a Grand Slam senior singles match in the Open, sealing victory in a tense 13-11 tiebreak. The win assures her of at least $154,000 US dollars, or around 8.7 million pesos, in a spot in the tournament's round of 64. Congratulations, Alex. You bring us all the honor on National Heroes Day. That is it for Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. Catch us again tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. here on One News. Have a great day ahead.